Hello, everyone. Welcome to week two as we discuss the concept of cynicism a la Diogenes. So, when you go through, there's two pieces here. You have an article, pretty detailed article about cynicism in the workplace and the challenges of that, as well as a story about Diogenes that I encourage you to watch. It's pretty straightforward and all that. So let's go ahead and focus on the concept of cynicism. So the idea behind cynicism is that people believe that individuals are primarily motivated by self-interest and basically selfish reasons. So it goes beyond, obviously, there's a certain degree of self interest that we must have. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to survive out there. We have to have self interest of food, clothing, shelter, paying bills. And we can have self interest as far as moving up in the world. Nothing wrong with that. But the cynic believes that individuals within themselves primarily, or people in general, behave based on their own self-interest. So I can attest personally, there are times when I am a cynic, and not to say that I'm always a cynic. I'm surely like Diogenes. Diogenes is interesting because what he did was he separated himself from any need for just about anything. So he lived in a barrel with dogs, and all he had was a bowl, and he would drink water out of the bowl or eat out of the bowl. Then he saw a kid drinking water with his hands and decided, wow, I'm attached to this, so I'm going to throw the bowl away. So the idea behind cynicism and why it can harm the workplace is if you don't trust people. I can see how life's experiences may lead us to distrusting people, and we should be guarded in many respects, especially with certain individuals. Sure, I have a problem with that. But this is more of a global distrust of humans and their intentions in general. So, if you see a lot of cynicism in the workplace, let's start with employees. That's a symptom of a larger problem, possibly either their current management or prior experience in life. Could be one or the other or both, where they just don't believe the intentions of their leaders. um, I saw this a lot personally in politics. This is just my personal opinion, working in government, and the wordsmithing and the spin doctors and all that. So I tend to be very cynic about politics personally, and that's not to say you should. It's probably not a good idea for me to be this cynical. But this is the absolute extreme. If you read about Diogenes, some would say in modern times he'd be in a psych ward, just because of what he did, his behaviors. I'll let you read about it and watch the video. Definitely watch the video about that and his encounter with Alexander the Great, which I thought was a neat story. But it goes to show us that basically we're going to have issues as leaders or future leaders with individuals who had some bad experiences, do not trust your intentions, do not trust that what you're saying or your initiatives you're putting out are only just for self-interest. That's what they think. So it's very difficult for those of the cynical nature to go ahead and trust you as far as your intentions. On the flip side, managers themselves can be very cynical about employees, saying, well, they're only here for their self-interest. They're not interested in the good of the company, which is not necessarily true, but it could be based on their experiences as well in a situation where they've had employees that are just kind of self-driven, not really motivated, so they don't trust your intentions. So if you look back to theory X and theory Y, theory X within itself, and I'll explain that as a refresher. Some of you know this, some of you don't. The theory X is the idea that employees are intrinsically lazy, so they're only motivated by negative reinforcement. I think that's a real cynical take. Personally, I'll let you decide how you feel about that. No wrong answer. Theory Y is the exact opposite of that, where employees do want to do a good job. They are self-motivated. We need to empower and encourage them and provide positive reinforcement versus a negative reinforcement. So I would say the cynic, in many respects, in modern times in the workplace, when it comes to leadership, is having the mentality that employees don't want to do a good job, that they're completely about their self interest, and you have to keep on top of them, otherwise, they're not going to perform. So, the middle way is to look at it like this: we all have a certain degree of self interest, and we have to. That's called survival. No one's going to provide you with everything you need in your life. You need to make a change in your career. That's your choice. You must act on that self interest. There's no problem doing that. But the cynical mind would assume, in either case, that the leaders are not, who they say they are, that they're going to go ahead and act on their self interest, where leaders themselves say followers do the same thing. So that can be really, really damaging to the workplace, to have that cynical mindset. And our job, if you want to go back to week one, where we're talking about Socrates, remember, question ourselves as much as we question other. Is this really true? Is there another way of looking at this? What are some other possibilities for me to consider, other than employees are lazy or managers are crooked or whatever? And even in our experiences, we had a bad experience, say, with a manager, or as a leader, bad experience with employees. That doesn't necessarily represent everyone, the general population, right? So we need to go ahead and use our logic and critical thinking to really do some self-reflection about ourselves and why we feel the way we do, and look for maybe a different truth. Is there something out there that's true that I don't see at this particular moment? So in life, there's no need to be cynical and go ahead and abandon ye all possessions, live in a barrel with the dogs, et cetera, et cetera. Um, at the same time, I understand why individuals might not have a whole lot of trust right away with leaders, especially because of their prior experiences. It just takes one situation for someone to kind of lose their trust, and maybe even focus more on their self-interest, especially if they're used to leaders that are only focusing on their self-interest. Well, why don't I do the same thing? Because they don't care about me, so I'll take care of me. So that really destroys the whole team dynamics, and destroys the probability of strong employee engagement. That could be an issue too. So I want you to think about that. How often in the workplace or in life are you a cynic? And I'm admitting to you right now, there are plenty of times in my life when I'm a cynic. I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing. In fact, I don't know, a little symptomatic of cynicism. I don't watch the news anymore. I don't debate politics. I don't discuss anything with anyone anymore. I don't trust their intentions. Anyone gets up and speaks before a microphone, I'm like, yeah, right. What are you going to do? You're not going to do anything. Same old, same old. And sometimes I'm right. Sometimes I'm wrong. But it's a defense mechanism, I guess you could say, in many respects, to avoid being in a bad situation that I was before, especially working in, say, my former job in the government, different state and all that. So, yes, you can become a cynic in many respects. Sometimes it's good to be a little cynical, but too much can really destroy an organization. We have to have a better perception of people. Yes, there's certain individuals out there who we cannot trust. I could think of a few during my tenure working out there in the workforce, where, especially as one individual, and she kind of lost the trust of all of us and apologized at one point. And I said, "You're forgiven, but I still don't trust you." So that's kind of how it ended. Yeah, I forgive you. I forget about it, but I won't forget enough because I don't trust you. And okay, that's understood. But to treat everyone like that based on that experience, that's a cynical approach. And that's how organizations have a hard time thriving and surviving, is when trust or mutual understanding or collaboration or that employee employer engagement. So I want you to think about that as you review the articles. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll be glad to help. I'll see you on the board.